I hope you can see me. Can you hear and see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great.
Yes, I can confirm.
Thank you so much for joining today. You know, when Dr. Odhiambo reached out and asked if I would be willing to speak, I was very curious about this group and the young women that participate, and I'm actually curious in the future to join future calls also to hear from other women leaders. I think we have a lot to learn from each other, and there's nothing stronger than supporting each other, not just in our professional lives, but also our personal lives. So I'm also grateful. I know some of my team members have joined. Thank you so much for being here. And it's a pleasure to meet everyone this evening. In introduction, my name is Chemu Langat, and I'll give a quick background to just cover my introduction. So I am Kenyan. I grew up in Kenya, and I'll quickly fast forward to high school because I think that was a monumentous sort of occasion for me, being introduced to boarding school and then the selection of courses. So anyone who was here and has gone through KCSE and other types of education similar to that, you're familiar with the decisions you have to make around classes to select when you join Form 1, and then narrowing down when you are in Form 3. So I went to Moi High School, Kabarak, and was introduced to very many wide selection of courses. I took French, and I also took a course called Power Mechanics. And power mechanics was my first introduction to a technical field and to the area that introduced me later on in college to engineering. And I was very interested in this. And I want to be very upfront and share that I was actually dissuaded from narrowing down in Form 3 to actually focus on power mechanics. Female teachers, bless their hearts, I think were concerned about the fact that no other girl had taken it before, and would I get the support needed, and what career would I go down? And so they were really suggesting, no, just take French. And of course, when somebody tells me don't do something, that's when I think I get the energy to do it. But I also had the passion on technology, and I was very much interested in engineering and vehicles. So I took power mechanics. And the gentlemen in the class, and actually my teacher, Mr. Koech, were very supportive, very collaborative. And I graduated with an A- in power mechanics. I did better in power mechanics than I did in math. And that is what set me down the path for engineering. And I had the chance, I wanted to do engineering, but I didn't qualify for any engineering courses in Kenya. So I actually qualified for BCom. But I was so focused on engineering, I with my parents' support, was able to apply to schools in the US. And I got into a university in Massachusetts, where I pursued mechanical engineering. And when I graduated, I pursued biomedical engineering in my master's because I was very much interested in not just the technology side of things, but how do you apply it to make human health improved? How do you address physiological challenges and diseases? And so I started down the path of biomedical engineering and graduated with a master's in biomedical engineering. And we were having a quick chit chat at the beginning of the call. At the time I had heard of NASA, and those who are familiar with the aerospace industry, I was very much stuck on, I must work at NASA. And being very ambitious, I decided only to apply for jobs at NASA. And since at the time, I'd moved to Houston, Texas. My husband was in Houston, and I had the chance to relocate and find a job and at Johnson Space Center located in Houston. And I just applied for jobs there. Eventually, I managed to get one, and my first job out of university was with NASA. So working on the medical systems, the exercise equipment, and the crew quarters that the astronauts sleep in. And I worked on that for the first 5 years of my career. And an interesting story, and I know this introduction is taking time, but I want to give you some context for why I made the decisions I made. I was working on an external defibrillator, which was designed and developed by Medtronic, which is a current company I was working with. And Medtronic had world-class equipment, and this external defibrillator, we were looking at how do we certify it for the space environment. And so we worked on that for a bit. I created some relationships, and later on, Headhunter reached out to me and asked if I wanted to relocate and work with Medtronic. And I was at that decision point and trying to figure out what do I want to do with my life. And I wanted to do much more from an impact perspective, being able to help for many more than the NASA and astronauts and the science aspect of things. And so I took the job with Medtronic and started off as a biomedical engineer in the quality organization, and then moved on to actually start volunteering on the side. We participated in an innovation competition and realized I have a passion for global health and wanted to bring solutions back to Africa. And so from that, we have an organization called Medtronic Labs that actually came into fruition following a number of Medtronic employees' contributions as volunteers. And so eventually the organization actually got established, and now it's registered in Kenya and Ghana. And over the last 3 years, I have been supporting the regional activities as regional head of Medtronic Labs Africa, and of the team members who I work with closely, as well as those from the larger Medtronic organization. You know very well, it's been a journey of discovery, but also a journey of figuring out how to create the right solutions for social impact. And I am transitioning again. I'll share that openly with everyone. I am transitioning to a new role outside of Medtronic next week with Best Buy Health, focusing on digital health solutions, connected devices, but really setting up their organization to be able to have that quality and regulatory foundation for expanded service offerings. So life is a journey, and we are on that journey currently.
That's such an amazing introduction. Thank you so much. From there, maybe I'm so curious. I know high school life in Kenya and life in the States, it's quite different. How did you adjust moving from Form 4? Because from right now, when I was finishing Form 4, although there's some people who are really passionate and wanted to apply for universities outside Kenya, they will be told you're too young, undergraduate, not yet. You have to be a bit more tougher. You'll go in your master's. How did you manage to adapt to the culture out there and at least still hold your ground? Because the other aspect that you're told, maintaining yourself, or how can I put it, staying grounded to your values when you move, when you change environments, it's quite difficult. How did you go about it, and how was life for you during that transition time from Kenya to the States?
Now, that is a great question. And Michelle, I think I have the benefit. My mother is American, so in some ways, some of the culture she brought with her, but she's been living in Kenya for the last almost 40 years now. So she's also Kenyanized. But I will tell you that first year was true culture shock. I went from being so excited to being in an engineering school and class, and to having experiences that made me question whether I made the right decision. And, you know, culture is a fundamental, it's a fundamental component of change. So getting used to a new culture is always going to be, it could be interesting, it could be challenging. And I think transitioning from the very structured environment of a boarding school, where your morning starts with, in my case, I was the one ringing the bell at 5:40 for everybody to wake up, to an unstructured environment where you set your own schedule, you set your own degree, literally you design your own degree. For the school I went to, you decide which classes to take. If you need a job, which I will tell you, I quickly needed one after running up the long distance calls home. You have to drive that. You have to figure out how you're going to pay your bills. And sometimes we are not prepared for these type of challenges, which I think is why many times our parents will say, no, just wait, just wait. But I also think that the preparation we get also in some ways prepares us for that. We are very, as at least my experiences, we're very exposed to other types of cultures, even as we learn. And we're exposed to many options when it comes to curriculum, at least when I was in school. I know things have changed since, and those are things that are not necessarily exposed to all the other people you will meet. Some people have never heard of Kenya. Some people have never understood, the different cultures that come from such a large continent with 54 countries. And so part of that transition phase was making sure that I stayed true to, as you mentioned, the values that I was raised in, because there's a lot that can distract you in university. But also making sure you find I call it your tribe, your people who you can, relate to, who you have something in common with. And you could have multiple tribes. In my case, I actually joined the Foreign and International Students Association. And so we would have regular meals together. We would talk about home. And there's a lot that you could still connect with others on. And so you find your way, but in some ways, something to take you back home is very critical, just to keep you sane as you're transitioning.
Okay, thanks for that. So still around the same point. From my side here in Kenya, right now you'll find that the job market is a bit tricky, and there's a lot that is happening. You're not so sure you'll be employed. You're not so sure if the course you're taking is valuable. Would you advise someone to go to and try out other universities from other countries and probably work in other countries? From experience in working outside and still managing projects in Africa, do you think we still have potential to increase our job markets and work better? Or it's still okay to go out and gather other skills and probably work outside?
I think it's a good question. I think it's going to be, unique to what each individual, one, is able to do. Secondly, is interested in, but thirdly is how much exposure are you giving yourself? And I think with access to the internet being so wide now, there's a lot you can research and sort of make sure you're informed on to help you with that decision. So my sister went to university in Kenya. So she went to USIU, and then she got a master's degree after that. And I did the opposite. I came to the US for my degree, but somehow was able to figure out how to work still at home and balance between the two. But from various experiences and seeing my own family members, get challenged with different types of employment, I'll call them hurdles, either stagnation or in some cases being retrenched, in other cases, sort of still looking for a job. I would say depends, and maybe some words of advice, because we're dealing with this right now with an organization I work with called My Path Global. Your situation is unique. What you went to school for, number one, may not be what your passion is in. That's one of the first things that we try to uncover is, what are you passionate about? What did you go to school in? You can still look for a job in that area, but start to build up your skill sets around your areas of passion as well. You can also start to navigate and look at what else is out there. And for those who are curious, I always suggest, build out your network. reach out to people on LinkedIn, for example, who you're interested in understanding. How did you end up where you did? Most of the time, people will actually respond back and be willing to have a conversation with you. And even within our own, team, one of the things we talk about is, how much mentoring are we doing of other young women who are trying to make those decisions? Because career advice is not always given at the time it's needed. So many times you go through your university degree, or even if you're graduating high school and you're stuck at that point and you're like, so what do I do next? And the options might be what your family is pushing you towards. The options might be what you qualified for. The options might be, stay home and help with the family business. But it is one thing that you can do is keep your curiosity going, keep learning about what options are and try to get involved, talk to people, volunteer for certain activities until you understand if you actually like it. So there's different things you can do as you still navigate if you're not very clear on what you want to do and what you want to pursue.
Okay, thank you for that. Actually, building up on that point, how did you end up narrowing down to the master's program that you chose to do? Because you told us, yes, you graduated, then you had at least some field experience, then you actually decided. How did you, because after graduating, I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities you might try out, but then you might get more confused on the way. So for those, I know quite a number of students who are in their final year might watch this or they're currently watching. So how did you, maybe one or two words on how you actually grounded your head on a particular master's program, and did you view the market? What exactly went on while you are narrowing down on your master's program?
Yeah, I wish I was smart enough to say I viewed the market. I think I went with interest, and I was interested. So I had finished, I was in my 3rd or 4th year of mechanical engineering, and it was very tough. It was very analytical. And I kept looking for how do I apply this to that human need. And there's different ways you can do that, but I kept yearning for like, oh, what happened with biology? I used to love biology and I could have applied this to that. So what I did, and I think this is something useful for everyone, in between my 3rd year of undergraduate and my 4th year, when we had a gap for holidays, I did 2 internships. And the internships I did, I actually applied and said, listen, I want to understand what it means to do biomedical engineering. And I got into the internships, and that gave me exposure to what biomedical engineering could be. So the first, actually, I did it 3 years in a row. I take that back. I did it after the 2nd year, 3rd year, and 4th year. And the first year, I worked on blacksmith equipment. I don't know if there's anybody here who knows blacksmithing, but there was an elderly gentleman who wanted to blacksmith, but he was quadriplegic, so he could not actually really be very mobile, and he was having a hard time, being able to navigate the hammer. And so I worked on building him a system that would allow him to still do some blacksmithing. Now, it didn't work perfectly, so the next summer I came back and worked on it again. But then the other thing I worked on was a biomedical engineering program as an internship that was looking at microchips and how do you use microchips for different types of sensing applications. And so that introduced me to strokes and what it means to have a stroke, and how can you actually help people who have strokes regain functionality that they've lost. And that's when I started realizing, hey, this mechanical engineering that I learned, while it's good, I really want to do more of the biomedical engineering. And so I automatically applied to the school where I had done my last internship. I already knew the people, they knew me, they knew I was hardworking. And that's probably why I got a very easy transition in. But they also gave me the job of being a research assistant, which meant I was getting a small stipend, even going into the master's program. So I think these opportunities, internships, co-ops, supporting people, shadowing mentors, really are the ways that you can expose yourself to things that you're interested in, but perhaps have not had a chance to do yet, to help you narrow down.
Wow, that's actually quite good. It's I think you get quite a lot of exposure in volunteering and internships, as you've said. And also these days, there's usually this aspect of you must have 5 years of experience and yet you're graduating. So I think these gap years and working on something in between actually boosts your CV in the process. So maybe we'll take a spin and look at your personal life. As ladies, right now, mostly from just talking as the youth, you find guys fear girls who have gone ahead. They have made quite a lot of themselves. I don't know, how is it? How did you manage to get your personal life going and even dating and all that? How did it happen for you?
So, and I appreciate the question, because I really think many times when we talk professional topics or career growth and decisions, we don't tend to focus on the personal aspects. And it's also really critical, because you cannot be strong professionally if your personal life is not in order. Is just my personal perspective. So I'll share that. So my husband and I met in high school. So we go way back. And we were in a mixed boarding school, my high school Kabarak. Of course, we were not allowed to date, so we did not date then. But when we graduated, and I had come to the US, we were dating long distance. He then followed, and we have been together for a very long time, which is unusual, considering that there's a long piece of long distance relationship in between. But he's been my support system throughout. And when I went on for my master's degree, it meant 2 more years of being apart. He was still supportive. And I think from the beginning in life, it's important to have a coach, a mentor, and a cheerleader. And they come in a variety of flavors. And what I've found in the personal life is, if you do have a partner, they need to play one of those roles at the time that it is necessary, because this work is not easy. And I would say probably the toughest points are when you're really trying to balance career and just keep growing the family. So having children, so we have 2 children. I have a 12-year-old boy who's in standard 6 and is going to standard 7, and then a 8-year-old girl, and she's full of personality, going to standard 3. And raising children while growing professionally is not easy. So the only way really to do it is make sure you have a support structure. Support structures come in different types of designs, depending on where you are in life or what is their circumstances are. But he has been that support structure, but then also our extended family has been that support structure. So, and when you navigate these things, having some, strong support structure is so critical. When I did my MBA between 2018 and 2020, and that was even more stressful than typical just job and travel, because I would do a lot of travel with my job and not children. Now imagine you add on an MBA to that, and it just became very stressful. The only way I actually managed it is having that strong support system, and actually it extended. It became extended family. And my children were also very supportive, because they knew I was studying, and you start to instill in them it's important to study, because this is what's going to help you, get better at what you're doing, grow professionally, you'll be able to do different things. And so having that structure is necessary, but it goes beyond, your spouse or your partner. It's your family, and then eventually your friends. And if you have a very good work team, they in some ways end up becoming part of your support structure, because they can also relate with what you're going through and can pick up and cheer you on when things are tough. So I would say keep building, that support structure as you move on through life, because the personal side will support your professional side.
Oh, okay. So that's actually great. I wish I would have gone to a mixed high school. Probably it would have been easier for me. Yeah, but that's quite a beautiful story. At least there's hope. So you've actually worked hard. From the story that you've given us. Hard work or working smart must have been part of your ground rules. What are some of the values that have actually helped you balancing being a mother, being a wife in your professional career, and just moving up the ladder throughout? What are some of the values that you can share with us that you could at least incorporate into our work, into our lives, and work ethic also? Because quite a number of times you'll find some organizations complain that the youth are not really committed. It's like we're 50-50, we're not so dependable. So maybe you could walk us through the values that we could hold personally and also in the work environment. What is quite crucial for the youth when they're focusing on those two aspects?
Yes, I think values are really that, I'll call it that is that's your central gauge. And when I think of purpose, I understand, purpose, and your purpose in this life is hinging upon, that intersection between values and, your talents or your experience, depending on where you're at. And I think values, fundamentally, I think most important is integrity. If you have no integrity, then we have bigger problems. So I think integrity is critical. I think the other aspect, the other value that I will tell you has come in handy is the ability to collaborate and collaborate openly. And so without integrity, many times collaboration can still be selfish. You can be supporting others only if it benefits you, but having an integrity as your central point, moral compass, and then adding on very openness and collaboration, that will take you far. I would also add that there's an element of persistence and grit and like pushing on that everyone, especially the youth, need today. There's so many challenges that you're bumping up against, and being able to persevere and have a very strong personality that can, you bounce back, you get pushed down, you get, you fail or you're told no, you still get up and move ahead. I think that is also really critical, a really critical value to take with you. And I think the last one I'll probably push on is what you just shared, which is commitment. And commitment is really critical, because if you're not committed, you're not dependable, and your work will not carry through to the end. So, to be a dependable employee, or dependable team member, or a dependable, committed leader is it is in its nature a way to success, and people will start to recognize that in you, and they'll know that they can come to you when there are issues, but they also know that you speak your word. If you are dependable and you say you will do this work, if you don't finish, you're the type of person who would come and say, listen, I'm not finished, but this is my plan to get to finish. Or you would make sure you are consistently being open in how things are going. So really, really, really critical. While not a value, I'll add one more thing in that I think is also useful for success, and that is communication. And communication is a huge, huge topic in and of itself that warrants another conversation, but being able to effectively communicate what the plans are, what your vision is as a leader, or what you're asking for directly, is tied in with many of the values that we talked about, but also being very open is tied in with integrity and also dependability. So just one of the things I wanted to add, that you bump into not just as you're looking for a job, but also once you start your career. And so I open any more questions on that, but I think that's a really great question, Michelle. Values, those are mine. Everyone should have their own value compass. Think about what is important to you. And when you start to question things at work, at home, always go back to that value compass and say, okay, how far am I veering away from where I really should be? And it does give you some type of internal gauge to sort of self-assess. And self-assessment is also very important. You cannot always just wait for other people to tell you. You need to self-assess periodically.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that contribution. And actually, this is where I want to come in as well. You've mentioned an aspect of integrity as being the critical value that you have to build in yourself and use it to drive value, and also in pursuing whatever you want to do. You have a Kenyan background in some way, and you understand the Kenyan landscape and the Kenyan context. Currently, as young people, that is one thing that we have to contend with every single day. Corruption is always in the media, and everybody is like, you have to find an easy way out. What would be the critical bit that you have to advise someone, a young person who is just venturing out? Because I know majority of the people who are here, they're either in the middle level of their career or just starting off from campus and related. How do you ensure that you are rooted on your values and being of integrity as an individual, and at the same time pursuing your goals? And the most critical bit is where you find somebody will tell you, I've been trying to be of integrity, doing things the right way and everything, but at the end of the day, it doesn't pay. Whoever is breaking all the rules is making a win at the end of the year. So how do you ensure that somebody will hold on to their values? And what would be your advice on that?
Yeah, we deal with this every day. I mean, we talk about this even internally within Medtronic and specifically in our Medtronic Labs organization. The world we live in is a world of corruption. Let us not try to pretend it's not. And many times you see success and those who are benefiting from various means are doing so in a way that is questionable, or you downright know is wrong. I am going to be very honest that it is tough, but you have to use your value compass. As soon as you start veering away from it, you will get pulled into things that eventually, even if the fruit is sweet initially, it will come back. And I say that because, there are times even in our current work where people will ask for bribes to be able to set up a meeting, or to be able to get you information, or to be able to get you connected to help you get to that next level of success. Each and every one of those encounters, at the end of the day, there will be something else that comes up that, number one, you'll feel uneasy, so which is a good thing because your compass is working. But number two, if it comes out that you got that thing you are looking for in a way that was questionable, or you are not using proper ethics, or you violated some requirement, everything will go. So are you willing to risk, at the end of the day, future opportunities for a stupid mistake to try and get ahead, or to try and get that that next level? And these things come out in the future. They are not hidden forever. You hear about things in the news many years down the road of politicians who have raised challenges that now small things are coming out from the past. So you have to have that self-assessment and make the decisions that are based on that moral and also value compass. And the one question I would pose to everyone who gets put in these situations is this something you would be comfortable being talked about on the news or in front of your parents or your family? That's a very easy gut check. If you are, then it's not something that is concerning because it's something that would be out in the open. If it is something that is going to make somebody frown or make somebody question your judgment, that is an unethical thing, and that is something that you should veer away from. So, we've dealt with this. I've been asked for bribes in meetings during tea breaks. We've been pushed out, and sometimes this means the opportunity that you are pursuing, you lose, or you are unable to get to that next step. But why get to that next step if it's coming through a means that is not proper? So my suggestion to everybody is think of this in terms of career is a growing and long-term thing. It's not something that you reach tomorrow through quick fix means. So every step you make is part of building that foundation of the future. So just something to think through and really help yourself shape your career from an early start now.
Thank you.
See, there's some questions that are coming through.
Yeah, there are questions that are coming. And just to conclude on this, and then we move to the questions, there's something that you've mentioned that's very, very critical in terms of would you be okay with the same information, the same act that you're doing now, being aired in the media, having it block your path for your future aspirations? And I think that's aligned with some of the most critical bits that, do you have a future long-term goal as a person? Because you could start at it from a point of, if I'm seeing myself running for a higher level office, let's say, for example, I have an aspiration of being maybe the DG WHO at some point in time, then it means my aspiration would be, at that point, if such a thing gets to come to the media, would I be okay with it? If I won't be okay with it, then I have to hold back and reflect and see what am I really pursuing. So how do you align with a long-term vision that most of us don't have? How do you establish that long-term aspiration and align it with your values so that you have a track of where you're pursuing your goals?
Now, that's a great point. And I would actually even take it back to, it does not have to align with your long-term goals. I'm talking about today. If, for example, your name is on the news saying you got a job and the way you got the job was through X, Y, and Z. And whatever ways those were, let's say they were unethical. Are you okay with that coming out today? Does not have to be long-term. Long-term, there's bigger implications, of course, because that means your foundation and your integrity is being questioned from way back then. It's not even like a current thing. It's from the beginning, have you had an integrity-filled, focus with your career? So I would say even today, as you start, as you graduate, at graduation, would you like somebody to announce that you got a job in a way that is unethical, for example? How would you feel about that? If you feel uneasy about it, that is your internal compass telling you, no, that is not the right decision you're making if you try to go down that path. So I don't think you have to have a long-term goal in mind for this type of self-checks. I think it's something you can even make today if you just put it, imagine transparency. Imagine the world is transparent. Anything done hidden, and especially there's some Bible verses around this, but I won't get into that, but anything done hidden is questionable. So if you're comfortable bringing it to light, then it's not questionable. But anything you're a bit concerned about, how will people take this? How might it be seen? Will my pastor be okay with it? What would my father say? That's questionable. So that is not a good decision.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Then now I'll transition back to you, Michelle, for the next set of questions.
Okay. Thank you so much for really diving into that, because sometimes we tend to forget that our values are what hold us together. And if you mess up even as early as now, in your 30s, that will still catch up with you. Some of these mistakes or some of the things we intend to do today still affect us in our 30s and in our 40s and in the next job that we want to get to. So I'll move into the questions while I incorporate the questions that I have. But one question from Mary was that, did you face any challenges in your schooling or when growing up or in building your career? Maybe I'll give Mary a chance. She can unmute and just ask her question so that it's passed better. Mary, could you unmute?
Yes, thank you, Michelle. So Chemu, I like to ask, I would like to know and also learn from it, me being a female and also trying to practically follow the same trend. I want to know the kind of challenges you went through during the time you were schooling and working and also building a home, family, and then how did you deal with those challenges and the stress involved? How were you able to overcome those challenges to be where you are today? I would really love to learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Michelle. So, I think we all face challenges, and the strength that you have as an individual is something that I think you have to keep building up. The stronger you are to address and meet those challenges as they come, the stronger the outcomes and the better you are on a path for success. So we call it resilience. So how resilient are you? And I'll talk about a few different challenges just to give you perspectives from a truly personal perspective, just so you can get a sense. When I was in school, I think the first year I went to school, my parents, they did a harambe for my school fees. So those who are not from Kenya know that, sometimes we have to fundraise. And so my parents fundraised and they raised enough money for the first year of school. And they were both lecturers at Kenyatta University. So I have a really strong foundation from a family perspective in education. So they knew the importance of education. They've pushed and all of us through that. I tell you, even today, they're still asking when I'm getting my PhD, which sometimes I bring this up because it's good to be pushed sometimes. And the challenge I'm raising is around, number one, focus. If your parents are raising money for you to go to school, when you go to school, you need to study. So university, I'm sure for many of us, was fun. University was a time to actually be away from the constraints of parents, and we actually could go to parties and engage in fun activities. And I was studying these technical fields, and my coursework was heavy, but it was not too heavy. But one of the challenges I came across was I needed to work. I needed to work after that first year. And actually I started during the first year because yes, it was enough to pay the school fees, but when I was homesick, so I would make a lot of calls home. I did not know that if you call directly using a landline to Kenya, you are being charged about $3.74 per minute. So if you're going abroad, please find out economical ways to call home. Now, I've since learned, and we were introduced to calling cards, but can you imagine $4 per minute? So here I am homesick. I'm calling my boyfriend, I'm calling my parents, I'm calling my sister. Before I knew it, my phone bill was $800 and they disconnected it. So financially, I went from everything is fine for the first year to, oh my goodness, all my pocket money has just gone to the phone bill. Actually, I was given $800 pocket money. I had already used some to buy the basic needs. Now I owe a phone company money and I don't have a way to call home. So what happened next was I automatically transitioned into I must find a job mode. So this was literally 2 months after I started school, and I went to the dining hall, and that was the only place that was hiring. So started washing big pots and wiping tables, and actually that helped me finish off the bills. Now, the reason I bring this up is the challenge will put you into a situation that might really, really humble you. So the same classmates that I would be going to class with are the ones now I'm wiping tables for. So, and I laugh because my father was also in university, and at some point he told me, you'll find yourself washing very big sufurias like this. You have to enter inside. And very soon I found myself in the kitchen also washing those very, very big pots and pans. And I think the humility of, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's helping you make your ends meet, and it's helping you figure out life. So my first challenge with college was running out of money. And then I realized the second year tuition was coming. So now I need to start saving up for that. So of course your parents, if they're able to, they can support, but my parents were only able to support a certain amount. So the rest I had to cover. So that was also part of something. So by the time I was a third year student, I had 5 jobs. I was teaching Swahili. I was working in the kitchen. I was a monitor in the science building. And I had 2 jobs taking care of the elderly. And so all my fun time was spent working. But those experiences are sort of the work ethic I built up. The fact that if I have something I need to do, I'm going to do it before I start having fun. So I think college turned from what I thought was fun quickly into forcing me to grow up into a mature individual because of the requirements of the finances needed to pay for tuition, and then also just to self-sustain. So that's a personal one I'll share on the schooling side. On the work side, I think, work is tough because many times you step into jobs that you are probably 80% of the way prepared for. There's always that piece that you go in feeling, will I actually be able to show these people that I can do this work? We call it an imposter syndrome. We've talked about this with a few of the folks who are on this call. And the one takeaway I want to give you, if you're passionate about that work, and if you're dedicated and committed, that 20%, you'll cover it in no time. Even if you've never done the work before, even if you've never been exposed to some of these things, having that work ethic, but then also overcoming it by being committed and learning and pushing yourself, that imposter syndrome you will overcome. And I felt that imposter syndrome every single job I've been in. In fact, I'm looking at, when I start my new job next week, I already have it because it's a new level. I'm at a leadership team that's very senior. I haven't done as much quality and regulatory work in the last 3 to 5 years. So automatically you start feeling that imposter syndrome coming. But one thing I know is it just is a matter of just getting back into focus, hard work. I dusted off my old books. I'll show you here. A big pile of old books. I don't know if you can see them right here. All of these are like old books from like my first 5 years at Medtronic, where I was working quality, and I was like going through them this week and realizing, okay, it's okay. I can do this. And so, push yourself, be your own cheerleader, but also really, if you do have those feelings of self-doubt, if you have those feelings of, oh my goodness, what is this? Do push yourself and just have that positive, I don't know, it's a outlook, and make sure your cheerleaders are around you. Your cheerleaders surprisingly will pull you through some of the hardest imposter syndrome sessions of your life, because they're the ones who will tell you, no, you can do it. What are you talking about? You did this then, and you did this here, and those were much harder. So, that's maybe a challenge I'll share, just that I bump into as I move into new roles. And when it comes to building a home, I think the challenge I'll share is, how do you balance? How do you balance being there for your kids and your husband or your family members? And then how do you balance professionally? And I think, this is a tough one too, because someone will suffer. And many times it's not the job, it's the family. And being open about, we're not seeing you enough, you're holed up, at the office, you're coming in, you leave, as my dad used to say, you leave before the sun rises and you come back when the sun has set and it's dark and we can't see you. Where are you? So I think being very open about what you're pursuing, the sacrifices that you may have to make, but then being intentional, and I'm not very good at this, I'm still actually working on it, being intentional on making time for your family so that they also feel that you're part of their life, you are helping, where you should be, even if you're not as present at all times. So this to me is still a work in progress. And the year of the pandemic, as much as it has given us more time together, I also found myself on Zoom calls for very long periods of the day. So it's not just a matter of physical presence in the same place, it's also intentional time spent with your family and your friends. Mary, I hope that helped.
Mary? Okay, on my end, I think it was a perfect explanation and you really went into it really well. Imposter syndrome is real. You might be qualified, but you do not feel qualified at all. Yeah, so it's exciting that you touched onto that. I see a hand up by Alpha. So Alpha, you can unmute and ask a question.
Thank you, Michelle, for this opportunity. So I have a question to our guest. For quite some time, I feel like women have been underrepresented, especially in the leadership positions. So what are the ways, or maybe what are the tips can you share to young ladies on how to take the leadership positions, especially in the male domineering fields?
If I love that question because it will allow me to also speak to Emily's question. This question is one we see and have experienced quite a bit of. As much as there are more opportunities being given to women today, it's still not equitable. And many times it's even harder to get to a leadership position and then continue to keep growing. And that glass ceiling that we hear about, it's truly there. So, however, this is where I think I'll share some very quick tips, but I also encourage more conversation, and I'll introduce my path global when I'm done. But one of the things we tend to see when we're working with young graduates or individuals who are looking for jobs is a level of confidence that is not equivalent. It's not equivalent to what we see with young men. And I know there's young men on this call, and I'm actually glad to see the mix of gender. Traditionally and culturally, we are taught as women, don't speak too much, be respectful. Ambition is good, but there's a time and a place. And unfortunately, I think that actually carries along with us even through our schooling up until we are ready to enter the job market. And some basic soft skills, an area where I would encourage everybody to keep building themselves up. One is we need confidence. We need to make sure we are able to introduce ourselves well, and we need to be able to be confident in what we've done. And I can't tell you the number of times myself and my co-founders of My Path Global have met with young women, and when we ask them to share their accomplishments, they're not very open. And many times it will be introduced as my team this, or we did that. And when you peel the onion back and you ask, so what did you actually do on the team? You find many times they had a key role that they have failed to highlight. And the other thing I'll bring up is many times we downplay our accomplishments. I'll share one example from a young woman who shared, I'm a recent graduate, I've been looking for a job, I haven't found a job. As I continued to talk to her, I realized she's actually an author of 2 books, and she's running a business and is investing in another business based on the resources she's raised from this first business, which means it's profitable. But none of that came across in how she introduced herself. And so as a future employer or as, you know, a mentor, what I would say is we need to self-assess, not just for the value compass and moral compass, but also for truly what are our contributions. And we need to be comfortable speaking about them. And we can do it in a way that is not boasting or bragging. And it takes practice. And the reason I am going to push on this is it happens so many times where we are unable to be able to explain what we actually have done. And we downplay it or we don't talk about it at all, which means on the other side, somebody does not see our full potential and they don't see what you've done in the past that could be directly related to what they're looking for. So one of the things we work with in this organization called My Path Global, which is a new organization we founded back in 2019, is work with STEM, science, technology, mathematics, engineering graduates, and those who are interested in entrepreneurship, and a select number go through job preparation and strategy session. And it's typically a month to 2 months long, depending on where the individuals are at. We put them through these soft skills refinement. How do you do an elevator pitch? How do you introduce yourself? How strongly is your resume speaking to what you actually are doing or have done? Are you actually bringing in those extra volunteer activities to make sure that you're being seen as all-rounded? And then we'll walk through preparations for interviews, and then how to job search, how to create a LinkedIn presence that is strong and stands out, and how to network effectively. So this is the program we run, typically 8 to 10 women per cohort. And then post that session, we link up the young women with about 9 months to 12 months of mentorship from somebody in the industry or someone who is closely aligned with them. Actually, we have one of the mentors on the call today, Catherine Midoni is on, and she's mentoring one of the young women in the program. And so I introduced this because we will be opening it up for women to apply for this in October, probably September, October timeframe. But these are skill sets that I'm happy to continue to share on more if this is a good avenue. But soft skills, confidence, building us up so that we enter those rooms and shake hands with a strong handshake and we're not scared. Even if we feel scared, we don't show it. And how to navigate those areas of uncertainty where you don't know what you're being put through to get to the job. So I would say, so Alpha, I think it starts out, you know, with that first job, but it also continues throughout your leadership path. So even me in my leadership role, how effectively am I communicating? Am I able to push back in a respectful, but also informed way so that it's clear that I know what I'm talking about, and people are listening. So it continues throughout, and these are skills that you continuously, you know, refine. But I'm glad you raised that question. Looks like you have another one, perhaps.
No, I don't have another question. Okay. Thank you for your response.
So, well, as we continue from here then, there's one question that I wanted to ask. Actually, it came in the chat inbox. As a leader, how do you build and enable your people, especially during such trying times during COVID-19 and all? And at the same time, linked to the question that Mary asked, you as a leader, you work with people under you, and some of them might have the imposter syndrome. You feel you're inadequate and all. How do you develop the confidence in themselves and make them feel like they are able to deliver, and that's why you believe in them, so that they can thrive and grow as individuals within your team?
So I may start it, but I know there's some of my team members on, so I would also welcome if they can also contribute, because I think this is also, we are all learning how to do this. I don't think we ever anticipated the world to turn into what it has turned into since the pandemic. But a team is based on trust, and trust in that you can be vulnerable and share where you feel inadequate or you're worried, but also from a leader perspective, the ability to see where individuals need development or they may need support. And so it goes two ways. You have to, as a leader, create a team environment where, one, you feel you can approach the leader and share when things are tough. I think that's important, because whatever the individual team member is going through inevitably will affect the work and the productivity if not addressed. And that could be a professional issue, maybe a personal, I'm having issues with so-and-so. It may be something that's happening at home. So I think setting up an environment where there's that trust and there's an ability to approach is necessary. The other thing I think is really critical is with the team members, they need to be willing to actually come out and share. We are all human, we can't read minds. So I think it's a give and a take between both sides. But during this time of the pandemic, it has been tough. And it has been tough on multiple areas. On our team, we lost a team member due to COVID complications. And it was probably the worst time of many of our lives. So being able to band together to overcome that was the only way we got through it. So, we're being very open in this setting because I think it's important for people to realize the human nature to work. And it's a tough time. And it's a time that you cannot manage alone. You have to have a strong team, and you have to have people you can reach out to and just be able to share freely, and sometimes sometimes just cry. Sometimes, be able to just like remove your frustrations and have a free space to share. So I really think that has been one of the things during the COVID pandemic, that it's brought more light to the need for that. But I would like to see if anyone else on the team would like to share, because we've literally been through this together.
Yeah. Is there anyone who wants to share? But you've shared a critical bit of it, and creating an environment where people feel that they're comfortable, they're free to share what they feel, and they're free to ask for that help when they need it and how they need it, so that you can be listening to them. So that's very important. Anyone who has something to share from the team? If there's none for now, oh, Catherine, yes.
I really can't add on much to what Chemu has said, but I think also a critical aspect is having empathy for each other across the board, and this is something that has been emulated. I'm not saying this because we've worked with Chemu and she's on the call, but empathy has been emulated in the organization, especially during the pandemic, having lost a colleague and just several losses for people we may know directly. But we've seen empathy really develop, and it's something that we now start focusing on, both from an individual perspective and as an organization, because everybody's going through something. Sometimes you may not know what it is, but just having that empathy and emotional intelligence and just giving people the space to truly be themselves can really go a long way.
Thank you so much for that. Being human and being with people where they need you most. Then there's a question, actually, I think this is the last question that we're going to take. How have you handled burnout throughout your schooling and career, especially while building a family? That's from Emily.
Not well. So I'm a workaholic, if you haven't sensed that by now. So one of the things you have to, please don't use my example and do what I do. I work long hours, and I tend to pick up probably more projects than I should. But I love the new challenges. I love I love the work. I love health solutions. I love team development. And so one thing I've found with all of this and perhaps balancing that against school is your love for the things might actually interfere with your self-care. And not only in, are you going to be balancing professional careers, you're going to be balancing families. Some of you might go on for further education. You have to make sure you're providing yourself self-care. If you are not healthy and you are not in a good space, everything else around you starts to collapse too. So, I've learned the hard way on this one. I think I've had a few moments where I'm just like panicking about, something, a big project or something that's coming up. And part of that was I probably didn't sleep that night because I was up thinking, or I was up late working on slides. And then by the time came time to sleep, my coffee from, 4 hours earlier is now kicking in. So my suggestion here is, learn from my examples and make sure that you are taking care of yourself, you're getting adequate sleep. Exercise, back to an exercise regimen now, you're eating healthy. Health is wealth. And remember, you can't generate wealth if you're not healthy. So burnout is real, and burnout comes to everybody differently. But this is one of those tools to sort of pick up, self-assess yourself. When you start to feel uneasy, you should start to have those signs and symptoms of things are not good. It shouldn't be something somebody tells you. So self-assess and then just watch for burnout because it will come. And so just careful and be ahead of it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And there's just something that just come to my mind. Being in a leadership position and doing what you do every single day, you have people under you that you take care of. But how do you ensure that you take care of yourself? At times, people would look for you to be the person who gives them the answers. Who do you go for your answers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have a team, and as you progress in your career, you will hear people suggest, oh, make sure you have a board of directors, a personal board of directors. And outside of the mentors, and I do have a coach, actually, I do have a coach that I picked up, a formal relationship with, because I felt the need to, in a leadership role, I need to self-grow. I need to sort of self-motivate, but I need somebody on the outside to hold me accountable to it and push me. So I do have that. I have my, various types of mentors, but a personal board of directors is different. This is a group of individuals and you build them up over time. You're not going to have them immediately you finish school. But as you progress in leadership roles, you will start to realize which of these mentors is actually holding me, not just accountable, but challenging me in my thought process, in my decisions. So I do have a small board of directors. I call them personal board of directors. I'm continuously adding to it, but these are folks that I can reach out to, and they are very open, honest, but their interest is my success, not perhaps what I'm focused on at the moment, which might not be the right thing. So I think these are some ideas for you to think about as you start off your careers, as you progress in them. But your network is gold. And if you haven't been on LinkedIn to at least use that tool, please join LinkedIn. Network with me. I'm very active there, and I link people up. A number of us I see on the call are actually active on LinkedIn. It is a great resource to get connected to people in different countries, different industries, different walks of life. And nowhere else will you be able to walk up to someone and say, can we start a relationship where I can learn from you and perhaps you can learn from me? Only these online platforms allow that. So take advantage of that. And if you're on LinkedIn, please do connect with me. I'm happy to keep also growing the network. You all need to keep growing your own networks. And I want to connect with you also so I can also see where you're going, and perhaps we can mutually benefit each other in this world. So that's perhaps the last thing I'll say on that.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And this is one of the things that I remember at some point last year I mentioned to our team. Technology has brought everything closer. And to make it closer to you is the fact that I reached out to Chemu on LinkedIn, and here she is sharing insight with us, something that we wouldn't have had access to if at all we didn't take advantage of that opportunity. So make the best of it, reach out to people, engage with them, get to see how you can create value and make it work for you. Then finally, as we coming to the end of the session, if somebody is out here is looking at you, Chemu, and they're hoping to get to where you are, what would be your last parting shot, your last piece of advice that you'd give someone to get to where you are and to be the best version of themselves? They might not be Chemu, but they might be the best Michelle, the best Alpha, and whoever they are. What would be your last piece of advice?
So each of you have your journey is laid out in front of you. You may not know what it is. I'm still discovering. This is it's a journey of life. There's very few people go in a straight direction and end up where they had their mindset from the get-go. Many times you either don't know where you're going, or you start and you pivot and you change and you adjust. And each of those adjustments are really good because that's richening your experience. So my last piece of feedback is live your purpose. If you don't know what your purpose is, start thinking about what motivates you. And this is tied back to passion. What are you passionate about? And I bring this back to it, maybe something you're good at, maybe something you're experienced in, maybe something you're interested in, but start to develop that and then build career around your purpose. Otherwise, what you find is many times people end up in careers that are just not as meaningful. And so they struggle to stay engaged. But when you're living your purpose and you're working in, work that fulfills you, work is not work. It becomes fun. It becomes something that you enjoy. And we don't all have the privilege to do that, but we do have the privilege to explore and learn what others are doing and then figure out what our purpose is. So what motivates you? Who are you talking to help build up your network and figure out what's shaping you and what will shape you towards that purpose? And then really, at the end of the day, just keep supporting each other in your networks. It's so critical that the support structure and having family support, friends to support, but also professional support. And if you went to school together, stay in touch. Those bonds will come in useful in the future when your colleague becomes a manager at a company and is looking for someone with, your skill set and they already know you. Or it's an opportunity to be in a professional development organization where you're contributing and, through some, professor or some other relationship, you would have stood out. So keep building up your network. But then I would say, purpose is probably center to what I would suggest in terms of closing remarks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's such a wonderful final parting shot in terms of purpose, passion, and looking at how you align that to who you are ultimately getting to be. Nobody has it figured out. You have to craft your path, and every day is a learning moment until the last moment when you've gotten to where you want to be. So thank you so much, Chemu, for taking the opportunity to be part of our discussion. For each and every of us who have been part of the discussion, up to 20 people, now we are around 14, 15. It's great that you guys have made it to be part of the discussion, and I'm hopeful that you've learned something. There's something that at the end of the day, you'll sit back and think of it and feel like you've gained something that you're going to put to use in your life, and you're making a difference in the spaces where you are. And that is what we are looking at as Ryculture, creating a different culture, redefining culture for health and prosperity. Everybody has a purpose. So how do we align that purpose and work as a team towards creating social impact, driving social value in our spaces, and be a team of people who are looking out for each other? So when you mentioned in terms of the work that you do with My Path Global, we are glad and we are honored to engage with you, and we'd be glad to support where we can so that we move as a team to make the difference that we wish for in our societies. Thank you so much. And I'll give you an opportunity to say your final words, our co-host, Michelle.
Thank you. Midway, I kind of lost my internet, but this has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much, Chemu. You have encouraged us quite a lot, and it's quite interesting to know that you also face some of the challenges that we even face as we're still being youth. So it will be a learning moment. I hope to reflect through this and gather and implement some of the things that I've learned today in my daily life so that I at least play a role in ensuring my success in future is good. So thank you so much, and I appreciate the time you've taken to guide us through and having this conversation. And I hope some of us will qualify to be part of your organization, and it will be an interesting journey. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And feel free to connect with us as well. I've shared the links to our groups as well, Twitter account and the LinkedIn page. Let's engage, let's keep the conversation going, and let's move together. Asante sana. Bye, everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night.